PrivateSectorAct.com, that's where it starts, singing our song. What's going on? United we stand strong. Hey, this is Ty Griffith, Total Hot Justice RealityTV.com, PrivateSectorAct.com's info show. This is what we're talking about. Really, does anybody understand what a lawyer is and what the Court of Queen's Bench is? Why do the judges act the way they do? Why do the lawyers act the way they do? Most people, once we give them this information, it goes, oh, that makes sense now. The Court of Queen's Bench sells judgments and debt on the world market because they're interacting with your person as your chief executive officer status. They're selling judgments. What does that mean? The world market buys judgments. Well, what do they do with it after? Well, that's what the world markets are for. They actually sell judgments to the world market. It's been around forever. We're just becoming conscious and aware of it as the private sector. The Court of Queen's Bench is listed on the world market. If they're listed on the world market, they have a conflict of interest. Conflict of interest. First things first, a Court of Queen's Bench is an incorporated on the world market. Now, here's the biggest problem with the whole thing, is that they also have promises they make to their investors in the world market that their bottom line is what it's all about. Their best interest is in their shareholders. The industry they're applying this to is our Truth and Justice. So how it works is that anytime, anybody goes into the Court of Queen's Bench as a plaintiff or a defendant, who they're dealing with is through your numbered company, the CEO. So this is how powerful this CEO status is. When you decide to stand up there and go, yeah, he's the plaintiff, I'm the defendant, or I'm the plaintiff and he's the defendant, or whatever, what you're really saying is that I am taking on that chief executive officer status, but I don't know it. Now, when whoever gets a judgment against each other, it is very interesting. The judgment is actually owed to the Court of Queen's Bench. So the Court of Queen's Bench gets to take it on as debt and then sell it to the world market. This is one big hole that we missed out growing up on the Canadian playground, because they told us that all these guys dressed up in these black capes are the wisest of all of them, and they're there for truth and justice. They never told us that they're being traded on the world market, and your judgments get to go that way, and you don't know you're a chief executive officer. So when you go to these courts and there's some type of judgment happens, it's between two legal fictions, and they get to sell to their world market. That is out of control. Now here's another thing. The lawyers, the Court of Queen's Bench, the lawyers, a lawyer is a trademark name like a realtor. So the realtor has access to the MLS system. If you have access to the MLS system, you by definition are called a realtor. Now get this, a lawyer, trademark name, is called a lawyer because they can get access to the Court of Queen's Bench. That's like their MLS. They get to list their conflict on there. Now this gets very dangerous. If they told you that you had to use a realtor to sell your home, you would be up in arms going, no, the private sector can sell their own homes. We don't need to pay out a commission. Now, at the Court of Queen's Bench, they're trying to tell the private sector, all of us, that, oh no, to get truth and justice, you have to bring a lawyer. That is totally and completely against every human right that stands there. Because in this little pretend world, remember, they work in legislation, which is called acts. So in order for the act to be used, you have to be a lawyer. That's what you get to use. The realtor gets to use the MLS system. The lawyer gets to use the acts because the Law Society has copyrighted them. So it's funny, when you do show up to court to represent yourself, which is a God-given right, it's a human right to be able to represent yourself. So you guys got to remember, the lawyer is a trademark name. Now, when they graduate from law school, they are not a lawyer yet. They have to go and pass the bar exam. So we're putting our truth and justice in the exact same system that we put our real estate in, that there's these entities trying to make money off of real estate's one thing, but trying to make money off of conflict, when you start to look into it and see how the Court of Queen's Bench is selling judgments, and they're a incorporated company, and their number one thing is their bottom line profit at the end of the day in their bank account, make it get bigger. Well, if they're in also the industry of giving us our truth and justice, this is the last place that all Canadians stop for their truth and justice and due process and due diligence. Conflict of interest, conflict of interest. So I mean, this is a very, very, very interesting situation when the financial institutions have all their acts and the private sector doesn't have any act. Like, I mean, every institution has an act, and then that covers 3% of the population, if that, and the other 97%, we're just walking around on the world resources, but not coming in as commerce, as our CO status. And again, we will show you how. As a human rights activist, what we need you to do is we will sign agency over to you, every one of these people, so you can start interacting with the lawyers, and they, by law, would have to interact with you because it's just agency of human rights away from people if they say they're not going to interact with their chosen agent. If you just want to complain, here's our call to action. We need to complain about this, so just click that link where it says to complain, click here, then share, then like. This needs to get to the people so we can see and come together with these large corporations using their large lawyers just to keep the small man down. And it's happening in every situation. Complaint sheet up there for the lawyers, for sure, where the information is, where to send it. This is what we need to do. Sign up, become a human rights activist, get involved. The big reality of it is that you get to talk to the lawyers, and lawyers have to talk back to you. So that is a little information on the Court of Queen's Bench on what we were told, what our justice system is all about. And if they are selling profitable judgments, let me tell you something here about profitable judgments. This is the big problem, is the way their model is set up. Is that sure, when one guy comes in and sues another guy, when's the next time, I mean, any of us are going to owe each other $500,000? Let's say never. Now, if you're talking to a financial institution, they'll say, yeah, we always get these huge kind of judgments. If you're talking to the Court of Queen's Bench now, and they sell judgments, who would be their special client? Obviously, it would be the guys who can create these huge judgments. A financial institution, now remember, a financial institution who created and has all these huge judgments, choose the Court of Queen's Bench by filing, and then the Court of Queen's Bench has a conflict of interest here, because at the end of it, let's say it's a foreclosure situation, let's say it's a credit card situation, any kind of debt, loan, anything. It comes down to this. The financial institutions are walking right through the private sector, just every one of us little guys, and they're getting these huge judgments from banks, like $500,000. That's the only way the Court of Queen's Bench is going to find people who have judgments of $500,000 against them from these banks creating it. And when you really understand the banks, how is it that I could be the one creating money for them to sell, and then somehow you ended up in court and them walking right through you, and you never even get to ask any questions? Institutional lawyers are just running right over us little guys, us just human beings. We'd like to be showing you emails. Affected parties, real Canadians, are sending institutional lawyers in every situation, and they're being completely ignored, and their due process is being ripped away. Right now, you gotta remember, an institutional lawyer is supposed to be giving us our due process, so to be, talking, communicating, back and forth. Institutional lawyers are just running right over us little guys. Here's our call to action. We need to complain about this, so just click that link where it says to complain, click here, then share, then like. This needs to get to the people so we can see and come together with these large corporations using their large lawyers just to keep the small man down. And it's happening in every situation. Complaint sheet up there for the lawyers, for sure, where the information is, where to send it. This is what we need to do. Sign up, become a human rights activist, get involved. The big reality of it is that you get to talk to the lawyers, and lawyers have to talk back to you. And we can actually start to make money off of your chief executive status, obviously, okay? Because we are in a game of commerce here, and the commerce starts with all of us coming together and starting a private sector act so we can actually start to implement the chief executive officer identity again within us. Okay guys, peace out. Later would be great.